The court is now back in session. The floor once again is given to Keo Samphan defense team to put question to this witness. You may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. Witness, I will proceed with your examination. Let me reassure you that I will not take very long. You had told the chamber that if there had been some compartmentalization between the internal teams and the external teams that were in charge of encryption. Did you have any information as to what the external team did and the internal team did? Did you have some information?
No, I did not know.
Donc, vous ne saviez pas.
So you did not know the nature of the messages processed by the internal team. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is correct. Besides working on the telecrime, I did not know what else they engaged in during their free time. Within my team, I have multiple tasks, including decoding the telegrams, the teaching of literature, for instance. So I did not know what happens to the internal team during their free time.
Merci.
Thank you. Please clarify this. When you were heard by or interviewed by tribunal investigators, and you did say that before this chamber, at times Mr. Keo Samphan sent you messages through human messengers and not by phone, and that the K1 messenger was Sam, and that he brought the messages right to your office. Do you recall stating that?
Yes, I recalled. There is Sam's group.
Alors, ce que je voudrais savoir, c'est...
Now, tell me, a while ago, before the midday, you stated that Keo Samphan could use the services of K1 to send telegrams. When you said that, were you referring to the fact that it was Sam who was working for K1 who delivered written messages to you? Was that what you were referring to, or you were referring to something else?
I'd like to mention the communication of the messages from Keo Samphan and his work group, who would send the messages to my team. It could be both through a telephone call or through a messenger, that is through Sam's group, who would deliver the message to me. And besides the distribution of materials, which was the content of the message. Then the message would first go through to K1, and some other times the message would come to my group.
D'accord, mais vous ne...
Very well. But you know nothing else regarding messages sent by Kyo Sampan and which were not subsequently forwarded to your group. Is that correct?
Besides the telegrams and besides the general instructions that need to be transmitted via telegram, I did not know about any other matters.
Je vais changer de sujet.
Let me go into another line of questioning. Before yesterday, you stated, and you again stated this morning, and we did understand through the questions that have been put to you so far, we've understood that you are accustomed, or you were accustomed to copying telegrams to certain persons and placing those persons' names at the bottom of those telegrams. And I'm talking of the famous list of copies, the A list. However, the tribunal does not have all the telegrams you processed between 1975 and 1979. You yourself stated yesterday that you burnt your entire archive of telegrams. My question to you is as follows. Since we are talking of a routine, we are talking of a habit you had, placing a list of names in copy A when K1, Upon, and Te told you not to copy certain persons because they were not present in Phnom Penh. Can you tell us what was the usual list of persons you placed in the column for persons copied, copying to such and such a person?
In general, the line copied to, as you have seen so far, the word it means it copied through those uncle Noon, Uncle Want, Uncle Kill, office, and document. Usually, there were only 7 copies, and the last carbon copy would be kept at my place because it was not that clear. However, if one of the uncles was not present or was absent, for instance, Uncle Ingsari had to go on a mission overseas, or that Son Sen has to engage in the operation in the East Zone, then I will be informed that from that day onward, there need no copied through for these particular uncles, so that their names will be excluded from the copy to line.
Oui, ça j'avais bien compris.
I had properly understood that, and I thank you for that. But I would like you to make an effort to recall what the case was. You gave me three names, in fact, Nun, Van, and Kil. Could you please try to remember the names of persons involved? Because in the telegrams we looked at together with you, you didn't mention the name of Pol Pot. Could you therefore make an effort? Please try to endeavor to remember the names of persons you placed on the list routinely.
I already told you that there would be 7 copies. One would be uncle, and uncle would refer to Pol Pot, Uncle Pol Pot. And then there would be Uncle Noon, Uncle Wan, Uncle Won, Uncle Kiel. Uncle Kiel did not refer to Kiel Sampont but Son Sen, and then office and document. So a typical copy to line would comprise 7 copies.
D'accord. Et
Very well. Am I correct in saying that the 7th person or the 7th copy was the one you kept?
Yes, that is correct.
est-ce qu'il vous est arrivé entre 1960
Between 1975 and 1979, did you happen to receive any instructions that you should add the name and the alias of Mr. Kyo Sampan to that list of persons to whom messages or telegrams were copied?
No. Besides Hamd and Kisampont, there was no other name.
Alors, ma question, c'était de savoir...
My question was that you should explain whether between 1975 and 1979 you copied telegrams or messages to Mr. Kyo Sampan or M, messages that you had decoded. Whether the name you placed in the list of persons to whom messages were copied was to Hem or to Kyo Sampan.
Every message that I worked on, I never saw any instruction that the name of Ham or Kyo Sampon was used. I only saw those regular names in addition to the office and the document. Let me repeat. There would be Uncle, Uncle Noon, Uncle Wan, Uncle Won, and Uncle Kiel. So those were the 5 uncles identifying the persons, and the other 2 were not for persons, they were the office and the document.
Je voudrais vous donner 3 noms.
I will give you 3 names and ask you whether you do remember whether those persons were added to the list of persons copied at any point in time. Do you remember placing the name Koi Tun among the names copied?
No, I cannot recall that.
ហើយប្រូសារដែល
And if a message was to be sent to Koitun, there would not be many and did not have any instructions regarding any message to send to him.
Est-ce que vous vous souvenez avoir mis
Do you recall mentioning Nei Saran alias Ya as a person copied?
parce que ici,
Let me repeat what I said. It appears that my pronunciation is very bad. Let me repeat it a second time. The name is Nei Sara alias Ya.
No.
Kepork,
How about Kepok?
I never have a copy to Guy Pok, but there were signatures of Pok. He was the one who sent some of the telegrams.
d'accord.
Very well. Another question. During the period when you worked in Phnom Penh, did you receive any messages for decoding which had been specifically addressed to Kyo Sampan? That is, messages from outside and which were specifically addressed to Mr. Kyo Sampan as the main recipient. Did you ever have to decode such messages between 1975 and 1979?
No, I never saw it. I never saw his real name or his alias in the copy to line.
Je voudrais savoir si, d'après votre
From your experience between 1975 and 1979, did you observe any changes in the subject of messages that Mr. Kyo Sampan asked you to decode? You have made mention of a number of subjects to tribunal investigators and even to the chamber. You talked of distribution of supplies, the National Day celebrations. Between 1975 and 1979, did you observe any change in the kind of subjects that on which Mr. Kyo Sampan sent messages to you for decoding?
There was nothing new, or there was no change to any of his messages besides the typical one.
Je voudrais maintenant vous poser une série de questions qui portent
The next series of questions will focus not so much on the substance of your testimonies, but on the manner in which the testimonies were taken by tribunal investigators. In reading the transcript of your first interview with tribunal investigators, which supposedly took place on the 18th of February 2009, in any case, that is the date on record, and it is also the date of the audio recording which we have in our possession. I noted that at a point in time, one of the investigators tells you, and this is on the audio with the reference D200/3.11, and it is on the first page. The French ERN is 00843061. In English, it is 00844056, and the Khmer ERN is 00838453. What I was saying was that in that recording, one of the investigators tells you the following, and I quote, "Yesterday you told us about Pang," end of quote. My question to you is as follows. Do you remember that on the eve of the 18th of February 2009, that is the day before, you also made tribunal investigators?
Mr. President, if I may be heard.
Yes, the prosecution, you may proceed. Witness, please wait.
I think there's a danger here that we might misrepresent the state of affairs. I don't want to accuse my friend of doing that. I just want to point out that, in fact, the relevant record, E3/64, indicates that the interview took place over 2 days. Now, I note the transcript is dated on the 18th of February, but we don't know where that date comes from. And I just would urge my learned friend to proceed carefully, because we don't know whether that discussion referring to yesterday was on the 18th or on the 19th. I'm not sure if the witness recalls, but I want to make sure that we're not introducing a controversy that may not be there at all.
Je n'ai pas bien compris la...
I have not properly understood the main thrust of the prosecutor's submission. Well, let me look for the passage in which it was indicated that the interview lasted 2 days. Perhaps I would be able to respond more effectively if I were to locate it.
Yes, I'm happy to assist. In that first record of interview at ERN Khmer 00328029, French 004111698, and English 003340448, there's a clear reference to the pausing of the interview on the 18th, and then a resumption on the 19th, and then of course the interview record itself is signed on the 19th, and that's apparent on the second last page.
C'est exact, Monsieur le Procureur.
That is exact, that is accurate, Mr. Prosecutor. Now I have another question still on the same subject. Mr. Witness, do you recall at what point, on what date, the record of the 18 February 2009 interview was read out to you for you to be able to sign it?
I cannot recall it because it's been 3 or 4 years now. If I had the document in hand, then maybe I am able to recollect it. I cannot say whether it was the 18th or the 19th.
Très bien.
Very well. I will try to refresh your memory by pointing out to you that on the last page of the transcript of that interview, it is stated that the written record was read out to you on the 27th of March 2009 at 11:45 a.m. That is the day before your second interview, which took place on the 26th of March. Indeed, the written record was given to the witness on the 27th of March 2009 at 11:45. It was read out to the witness. He did not object to it and signed it. Do you recall that the record of your interview was given to you 1 month and 10 days after the interview itself?
I cannot recall that. I have been so busy in my daily life and I did not pay particular attention on the exact date in regards to this document.
D'accord.
Very well. My question did not have to do with the date on the document, but on the occasion during which you were given the possibility, you were allowed to read the record of your interview to see whether it reflected what you had told the investigators. Let me point out that if I go by the documents given to me, it would appear that 1 month and 10 days elapsed before you were given a paper to read out and ascertain whether it reflected what you had stated and which was written down. My question to you is whether you remember the date of the interview and the date on which you were shown a copy of the transcript, the interview, and you signed it.
Based on my recollection, they came to meet me twice. For the first interview, it took 2 days. But for the second interview, I cannot recall how many days it lasted. But I believe you can find out the period between the first and the second interviews if you read the date on the 2 interviews. Their procedure before I was asked to sign, they read back to me and they asked me whether the content of what they read reflected the true statement. And they did do all that. They read it back to me before I signed the document.
D'accord.
Very well. Allow me to return to my first question. Regarding an interview that would have been held on the eve of the date. Now, the co-prosecutor has kindly pointed out to me that in the written record of witness interview, the first interview lasted 2 days, and this is entirely accurate. However, the fact that you had talked about Peng before the co-investigators is actually found in the first part of the written record, that is to say, during the first day. This is ascertained from the transcripts of the audio recordings, as I've pointed out, and it can also be found in the written record of witness interview, which states that prior to the pause, the co-investigator's question, which was supposedly asked on the 18th of May, you talked to us about Peng. And yet, in the written summary, it appears that you never at any point in time talked about a Peng. Therefore, the interview would have occurred at another occasion, and if we are to rely on the audio transcript, then it would have occurred on the 17th. Do you remember this? If you don't, please say so. Do you recall having met with the tribunal's investigators before the 18th of February? And if so, what did you talk about?
But
Well, I do not recall that well.
សំណួរក៏មានច្រើន
There were many questions,
ហើយវាយូរឆ្នាំ
and it has been a long time, and I have not thought of it since then.
Je n'ai pas d'autres.
I have no further questions for the witness, Mr. President. Thank you.
President, thank you. I now hand over to the defense team for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put the questions to the witness. Mr. Nong Sopong, you may proceed. Counsel Sonaran. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Mr. Nong Sopong, I am Sonaran. I am the National Defense Counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia. Good afternoon.
មានសំណួរមួយចំនួន
I have a number of questions to you. I know that you have answered some of the questions already as they were posed by different parties to the proceedings, but unfortunately your answer has not been clear enough for us. So I would like to open a bracket here. Yesterday, I observed that in the afternoon you appeared very weak, and your response to the questions was not that energetic and assertive. So I would like to simply check whether or not your health is good enough that we can put the questions to you.
បាទ
Response. Yes, but yesterday I was not well. My blood pressure went up to 18, and then today it goes down to 16. So I am in a better shape today, and I will try my level best to provide testimony to the court.
អរគុណលោកសាក្សី
Counsel, thank you. This is a great contribution and to the court. In 1973, you joined the revolution by the revolutionary name of Hong in Pravia, and you were selected to work for the party center. At that time, you were attached to B17. At that time, you were 21 years of age. Is that correct? Response. I did not really recall the exact age I joined the revolution and that office, but at that time it was in 1973, and now I am 60 years old. I think that we have to do a little of a mathematics here, but it could have been around 20 or so years of age. It was around 21 or so.
អរគុណ
Counsel, thank you. Prior to joining the revolution in 1973, what was your occupation? According to the document we have, you mentioned that prior to 1973, you were a primary school teacher. Is that correct?
បាទពិតប្រាកដ
Response. Yes, that is correct.
អរគុណ
Counsel, thank you. Upon joining revolution, Mr. Pong was the head of the telegram unit attached to B17, and this unit was stationed at the rear, and that was your testimony earlier. As for the telegrams which were supposed to be sent to the upper authority was addressed to Brother Paul most of the times, and once in a while it was addressed to Brother Nguyen. So my question to you is whether or not you knew the content of those telegrams sent to either Brother Paul or Brother Nguyen.
បាទ
Response. For messages and telegrams we decoded in 1973 onwards, I had to do it, and at the same time I learned about it. And it was in 1974 when I changed the place. Actually, it was located in the banana grove somewhere. It was in the premise of B20. It was not in B17. And when I was working in the forest most of the telegrams and messages was meant to be sent to Brother Paul. As for the content of the messages for Brother Nguyen, as I said earlier, it was the information and development of the situation at the rear, which had already been liberated.
នៅក្នុងសារមួយ
Council. In each and every message which you had in your possession, normally there was the heading, the letterhead, and on the upper part of the telegrams, it has a salutation which referred to individual recipient, namely the senior brothers. So on the salutation, there was dear recipient, someone, and then down below at the bottom, there was a carbon copy for people whom this letter or message was intended to be sent to as well. Correct. Response. Yes, on the heading, there was a salutation, but at the bottom, it was not the carbon copy, but down below the message, if you look at the format, the general format, there was a closing. They mentioned that they mentioned a lot of congratulatory message or courtesy message or so, sayings with warmest revolutionary fraternity and things like that, and it varied depending on the writer of the or the author of the message. And then they also mentioned the date of the telegram as well, and then finally it is followed by the signature of the author. So there was no carbon copy down below, because the intended recipient was mentioned in the salutation and the opening paragraph already. So the carbon copy was the responsibility of those who were in the telegram unit to add those who were supposed to be copied to.
នៅខាង
Council. You told the court just now that at the salutation they addressed to the intended recipient, but then down below there was a signature of the author. I look at numerous telegrams, and there were only the names of individual author. Why didn't they affix their signature there? Why was there only the name, not the signatures there? Was that the usual practice of telegrams or messages in the telegram at that time?
បាទ
Response. The signature did not have to be the signature that we sign it, but actually it could nearly bear the name of the author of the message. Counsel. Let me be precise on this. The signature. Are you trying to say that the name of the author was considered a signature, and there was no need for an additional signature and the name for each message? Is that what you are trying to say?
បាទ
Response. No, I was wrong earlier on. Actually, the name of the author of the message and the telegram was the signature.
គេមិនអាច
They would not affix any signature or initial on the telegram. They could not do that by themselves. Counsel, thank you. Upon receiving telegrams concerning the plan to attack Phnom Penh and to liberate Phnom Penh, and that telegrams were also about the logistics and other ammunitions, and so in order to be used to attack Phnom Penh. Can you tell the court where that telegram was sent from and who was the intended recipients of that telegram?
បាទ
Response. I had not received any telegrams concerning the attacks on Phnom Penh or the liberation of Phnom Penh. But as for the telegrams concerning the ammunition, materials, supplies, and distributions or so, to my recollection, when I was stationed in the forest, there was one person who was responsible for logistical support. He was known as Ja, and he was the one who managed the supplies of material to the front. He was the one who knew how much ammunition we had and how much supplies we had to provide to the front.
ពីអ្នកចុះហត្ថលេខា
And he was the one who affixed the signature concerning the materials and weapons and stuff like that. And at that time, if I still remember correctly, the undersigned of the letters was Ya.
លោកសាក់សីបានធ្វើការនៅ
Counsel. You were later in charge of a telegram unit attached to the center. You were tasked to decode telegrams at the center committee. How far was your office from the resident office of the leaders? Just an approximate distance. How far was it?
បាទ
Response. Well, when I was stationed in the forest, I did not have any I did not, or I was not entitled to go freely or enter the office of the leaders. And at that time, it was deep in the jungle, and we could not actually know exactly where the leader's office was and how far was it was not known to me as well. And at that times, I had to study about the telegrams and things like that on the job when I was doing it, and I did not know how far the leader's office was from the place where I worked. Question. Then, when you moved to Phnom Penh, of course, Phnom Penh was not a jungle, so you could probably know the distance from where you worked and the office of the leaders. How far was it?
បាទ
Response. My office was located in Sotirus Primary School, and the leader office was in the K1 premise, and you might have already seen in the photograph, it was the two multi-story buildings along the Tunle Basak River. The exact distance from my office and that of the leaders, I did not know precisely, but it was not far. It was approximately 1 kilometer or so. As for the logistic and material supply unit, I did not know how far was it from my office because I had never been there myself and I had never measured it either.
សូមអរគុណ
Counsel, thank you. The working procedures of telegram unit, you never had any direct contact with the office of the leaders. Then through whom did you contact with the center? Through Pong or others?
ទំនង
Response. The communication back then was by means of telephone at the time. That was the primary means. For example, when Pon wanted to contact me, then he would call me. And in certain instances, when they had any messages, they would come in person to see me and send them to me.
បើតាមចម្លើយរបស់លោក
Question. According to your testimony earlier, that there was a close proximity between the office of the leaders and that of yours. Did you ever see the leaders come to your unit, or did they ever invite you to come over to their office? Response. It is true that my office was not far from K1, and I sometimes saw the leaders drive past my unit. For example, Pol Pot could have driven past my unit. So they commuted back and forth, passing my unit to K1.
អរគុណលោកđãឃើញលោកនួន
Question. Did you ever meet or see Nuon Chia?
បាទ
Response. I saw him once. He once went to my unit. He brought along with him a short messages and telegrams inviting cadres to attend the meeting sometime in 1977. That was the only time I met him when he went to visit my office. Counsel, thank you. So, it is fair to say that Mr. Nguyen Chia visited your office in person. Did Mr. Nguyen Chia talk to you then, when he was there? Response. No, we did not talk to each other. He only handed over the message to me and my team and instructing us to decode the messages. He did not say anything much then. Question. And then later on, did you ever meet Nguyen Chia on any other occasions? Response. No, I didn't. Question. You were working with the Democratic Cambodia government and you met Mr. Nguyen Chia only once. What can you say about the personality of Mr. Nguyen Chia? Do you think that Mr. Nguyen Chia was a person of cruel nature? Was he abusive? Were he aggressive also? Response. It was my own observation of the personality trait of Mr. Nguyen Chia and other leaders. They are of the respectable quality. They were not people who liked to abuse their power. They were not people whom we are terrified of. We never saw them arrest or killed anyone by our own eyes. We have never seen that. They were of high moral value. In addition, they were senior and educated people. And we had respect for them. We never imagined that they could have been the murderers or the perpetrators of the crimes of serious nature. Counsel, thank you. I would like to ask you to tell the court about the sketch of figures you have so far sketched, document D200/9.12. I think you have this document before you. This sketch outline, you have recognized that this belongs to you. Do you confirm this? Response. This sketch outline was drawn by me, myself. I confirm this. Counsel, thank you. I have a few related questions to this sketch diagram.
On the sketch, there were 4 large rectangular boxes. From the furthest left in the box, there is a writing 870 K1. And above that there is a line which states communication network. And for the second box, it reads 870 committee K1 underneath. And to the right of the box, can you clarify the first two boxes, which includes both 870 K1 and 870 committee K1 on the second box? Do they bear the same meaning? Response. These two boxes are different. One reads communication network. It is also a K1. And that communication network belongs to 870. And there were those who were in charge of the telecommunication as part of K1. As for the other box, it reads 870 committee. It refers to an institution of the center which was known as 870 committee, where Pol Pot was the head of that committee, and he also had his residence within K1 premises, and his office was also within the compound of K1. Council, thank you. And the third box, it says the State Presidium, and underneath is an abbreviation of a name, and then there was a point, an arrow pointing downward indicating ministries, namely Ministries Information and Propaganda, HUNAM. As for Education, Junyat, Social Affairs, Interior, Mind and Energy, ... Economy and Finance, Von Wade. But I believe you made an amendment yesterday regarding the person here, Von Wade. And then for the Foreign Affairs, you state Ieng Sari. Are you referring here to the government or to a committee? Response. Here, I'd like, in fact, I intend to show another institution which was also the high institution within the Democratic Cambodia, and that is the State Presidium. And the abbreviated name that I wrote would read Khieu Sampon, who was then the president of the State Presidium. And I already explained the downward arrow pointing to the ministries. It indicates that this is a civil administration within the government. It comprises a number of ministries, as I explained already. And the word ... next to Mind and Energy is that I did not know who was the minister. Council, thank you. So, as you state, under the State Presidiums, there were various ministries. But the question is, did the Defense Ministry under the authority of Son Sen was not part of the government? because I saw the arrows coming down from the second box, that is from the 870 committee. You indicated that there was one defense ministry, and then Son Sen. Was it also a ministry? And if it is a ministry, why it is not part of those ministries? Response: because I did not grasp the details regarding the defense ministry. I was not sure whether the defense ministry was under the supervision of Khieu Samphan, and due to that uncertainty, I put it aside. The defense ministry had its own authority to control all the military, either navy or the soldiers or all the divisions. I put it aside because in practice it seems that Khieu Samphan did not have any influence over the military. So I put it next to those ministries, but I did not put it under Mr. Khieu Samphan. Counsel: so you are yourself not sure of the infrastructure of the government, is that correct? Response: that is true in regards to the infrastructure of the government at the time. Counsel: at that time, did you ever hear of the Ministry of Security or the Interior Ministry? Response: I heard about security. Security came under the Ministry of Defense, where Son Sen supervised. Counsel: thank you. So it means that you forget to include the Ministry of Security under the Defense Ministry, is that correct? Response: Son Sen was the Deputy Prime Minister in charge of Defense Ministry, and he was also in charge of internal security throughout the country. So I did not put the ministry or another Ministry of Security because the Defense Ministry encompasses all those elements, including security. Counsel: thank you. Now let me move to the fourth box, that is the People Representative Assembly. Underneath you put the name Noon Chia, and under Noon Chia you wrote number 3, and next to it there is another box. It reads court. What does number 3 mean, and what does court mean? Response: there are a number of matters that I intend to put into this case during my interview with the OCRJ investigators. This is a separate matter when it comes to number 03 CK105, for instance. Here, the OCIJ investigators referred to another separate matter. It was not part of the main boxes or under the authority of Nuon Chea. It refers to the communication. For instance, for a matter of urgency, or if any of the leaders or if any of the base requires an immediate response from the upper level, they did not need to rewrite the message again. They would just request them to respond to the previous message number 03 or the word DD, indicating the level of urgency of the matter. So these are the technical aspects of requesting for immediate response to previous message sent. And that dealt with how communication worked between the zones and the upper level. In regard to the box with the word court, in fact, I want to put the court at the same level as the other boxes because it was also part of the government. And according to the broadcast on the radio, Kong Chap was the president of the court. So let me emphasize that in fact during the Democratic Cambodia regime there were four main institutions, namely 870 Committee, the State Presidium, the People Representative Assembly, and the court. So these were the highest institutions within the Democratic Cambodia government. Council, thank you very much for your clarification regarding the four bodies of the government at the time. Does it mean that there was a separate judicial body separate from the other three bodies? Response: yes. Within the organization of the state, there was this legislative, there was this judicial power which was separate from the other bodies. That is, separate from the People's Representative Assembly and the State Presidium. And it was similar to the other structures of the governments in the world. Council, thank you very much for your clarification regarding the four bodies of the government. My question to you is the following. At that time, Nuon Chea was the head of the People Representative Assembly. Is that the fact that you know, or did he have any other role or function? Response: regarding the role and the function of the leadership level, I could not know in details. I did not know about their other tasks besides the role and the function displayed to the public and displayed to the world. I was like the rest of the people in the country and in the world, that he was the head of the People Representative Assembly. And I did not know about any other function or role. Counsel, thank you. President, Counsel, how many more questions you have for this witness? The time is now appropriate for a short break, and we shall take a break and resume at 3:05. Court officer, could you assist the witness during the break and have him return to the courtroom at 3:05?
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ